Good news.
We are here at Good News Thursday, and Brad and I were just thinking about whether or not we could make you smile today. And I certainly think that having Tesla be up, I don't know, would it close up about 10 and a half or almost 11 points today? That should make people smile.
Yeah, I would think so.
So I know you're not
And some
much.
great news.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I know you're not much on the short-term stuff, but do you believe we are now in FOMO land and that this FOMO will continue pretty much up to 1010? I don't mean in a straight line, but is that
Yeah, I don't think we're at a sentimental high yet. I, there was heavy buying on the open after the timeline was released by Ashok Ellaswamy about what they hope to accomplish this month with AI.
yeah,
And
and next month and next year?
yeah, so maybe we could talk about that real quick.
Sure.
Um, So they talked about 12.5.2 with unified models for AI 3 and AI 4, which is the two hardware versions. Actually, Smart Summon, which is already out. Cybertruck Auto Park, probably coming this weekend,
Okay.
according to some tweets. End-to-end network on highway, I think, would be huge. Highway is probably the roughest thing now for
Okay.
like the best part of Tesla's self-driving.
Uh-huh.
And also talking about Cybertruck finally getting FSD on that in September. Sounds like a very ambitious September. I think maybe I love Ashok Ellaswamy, but maybe he's been infected a little bit with Elon time. But it's exciting, they're feeling that enthused. I wonder if that's Cortex coming online and Giga Texas. But yeah, I think the buying early today was a sign that people thought this was really good news, and maybe some people are starting to play this event. I almost feel like 1010 has started already. I know it's only 9/5,
Right.
September 5th. But this is a lot of news, related to, self-driving. Also talking about, attempting to get some kind of approval to begin to roll it out in Europe and China.
Right.
But that was old news. Elon was talking about that before, but to hear him say it again, I think may have gotten some folks excited.
Yeah, and so that also kind of sets out some milestones, it sets out some goals, and most of them are in September, a couple in October, a couple the first of the year. But we also know that 1010 is coming up, so having some milestones between now and 1010 certainly could create, I would call it energy. You said it's already started. 1010's already started. It's kind of like that.
Mhm.
Each time one of these milestones is actually executed on, it would be, kind of another reason to get excited about 1010. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and actually, Smart Summon has the potential to be a bit viral, where people will want to try it out in Costco parking lots. We've already had three big videos go viral of action in Costco parking lots. Um,
Costco's doing
generally in a
almost free
good
everything.
way. But there was a case where actually Smart Summon, I think, is like doing this hard stop,
Yeah,
and people are thinking it's stopping so hard they think it's curbing, like
yeah,
hit curb, but actually when you look at the video and you see the side repeater cam, it's not actually hitting a curb.
yeah.
Um, but it like when it hits the brakes hard on the actually Smart Summon, it's a little jarring, but there's a lot of great improvements. It gives you camera view of what the car is seeing,
Oh, yeah.
so it's a little easier to do it safely. It's following more rules of the parking lot.
Nice.
Um, so if there's like all this paint for, rows of parking spots, it doesn't drive across the paint. Like a lot of people do that, but technically it's not safe to do. So it'll go up and down the rows and all that. And it's not something it's not a system where you're trying to pull it into a parking spot. It's generally for when you're trying to get it to go from a parking spot to the front of the store or the side of the store, something like that.
Yeah. And again, the videos so far seem to be pretty positive, pretty
Yeah.
solid. And people, I saw one earlier today where the windows were rolled down and people were going, "Oh my gosh, there's nobody in that car." That, of course, is what we're hoping to see all across America, is events like that where people are like, what's with this car? There's nobody in there.
Yeah, I might have to bring my dog with me now and just have my dog in the front seat, where people just see the dog and they see the car pulling out, turning and heading toward me, and people freaking out.
So you don't have ASS yet, do I assume?
I do not yet, no.
All right, so we're expecting a lot of people to get it next week, is my understanding. So maybe by next Thursday, you'll be able to give us an update on your experience in the Costco parking lot with your dog. I can't wait for this one. But you do have various versions of 12.5 dot whatevers, various different vehicles. And so you put some stuff up, I think some YouTube videos up, but I'm not sure you've put all three up yet. I only saw the first one. So anyway, tell us about your testing of the various hardware 3, hardware 4, .2, .5. I can't even keep up anymore. I'm sorry.
So as promised in last week's video, I tested an AI3 Model Y, which is hardware 3.
Okay.
I tested a AI4 Model Y,
Okay.
an AI4 Model X,
Okay.
and also tested against my own driving in the Model X to see
your own
how
driving.
smooth is it, how does it handle 12.5.
And with an accelerometer.
Not yet. Not yet.
Okay.
This was just 4 people sitting in the car
Okay. All right.
with
Judging
their own experience. Yeah. And it was rough in the hardware 3 car. I don't know what else this applies to, but we're seeing a significant regression in roundabouts, and the car deciding to enter the roundabout when it doesn't have the right of way, where it's uncertain if that car on your left is turning or going straight. And a lot of time it's a certainty that it's coming through the roundabout still, and the Tesla's still deciding to go. So maybe a local would decide to go at that same time, but it's a little too aggressive, a little uncomfortable. So we were seeing that a lot. We had a safety critical intervention where as preventing an accident by having it stop. And the hardware for Model X really didn't do that.
Got it.
And I'd say the hardware 4 Model Y was also better than the hardware 3. So right now my hardware 3 is not doing well with roundabouts at all, and I'm hopeful about this new version that's coming out where they're gonna bring them into the same model, because right now it doesn't look great for hardware 3, and I'm curious what else it applies to.
Sure.
So what I'd like to do, and I don't know if I'm going to have the time, is to test it out with the accelerometer, as I discussed previously,
Right.
and try it out in a couple different vehicles.
Yeah. All right. Well, cool. We'll wait for the accelerometer test, but maybe I don't know when they think the merged version is coming, whether that'll be as early as a week or so, or whether they think that's later this month. But that, I guess, would be that'll be the real time. That'll be, if we get a merged version, merged with highway, with all the new goodies, within a couple of weeks, apparently, maybe 3.
Yeah, that would be great.
That'd be amazing. Matt says he thinks that, I saw a video with him earlier today. Matt Smith says that he thinks supervised robotaxi rides right after 10:10. So his theory, if I heard it right, he believes
Mhm.
not, maybe it won't even necessarily be supervised automated rides. In other words, it'll be up to the driver, whatever they want
Mhm.
to do, whenever they want to use FSD, whenever they want to, drive it, but that the app would be available immediately after 10:10, and people can start making money off the app and make their own decision whether they turn on FSD or not.
Yeah, so that's Matt's theory. I do
He's the
agree
first.
with him.
I haven't heard anybody else say that one.
I do agree with Matt that I believe Tesla needs to start getting shots on goal with the software. Uber and Lyft have 10 years of lessons of learning. Randy, you're a small business owner. You know that you can't just throw money at a problem and expect to learn all the lessons you need to learn. You need to get through the problem. You need time and you need to fail and learn and adjust and all that. So I think it would make sense for Tesla the earlier they can to um, to have an app and to do something with it, whether it's a supervised rides where people are using FSD. I think that would make the most sense where they would kind of mandate that drivers do most of their miles on FSD so that other people would see that.
Right?
Um, but they don't have to do that. And just begin to get that data and understand more about the logistics of a rideshare app.
Yeah. So my version of what Matt said was a little bit off. I mean, I've been saying all along, I thought they should do supervised FSD as soon as possible, but I had in mind that it would be really FSD and the driver would just be sitting there for the, for the supervision.
Mm,
But now to suggest that, well, it'd be up to the driver if they find that if their customer doesn't feel comfortable, and they can always switch over to driving it themselves. So, but I liked his idea that just get it going. Let's get
mm,
started, get some data. Tesla doesn't need to make money on it right away. They could, was it you suggested or somebody else suggested, maybe give all the money to the driver in the beginning. If you do that, you would have drivers who might, not be interested in doing it for $25 an hour, but might be interested in doing it for $50 an hour. Uh,
mm,
because they're getting 100% of the take instead of just a portion of the take. One of my other ideas that gave me, well, so I'm watching Matt and I'm going, well, wait a minute. Why couldn't Tesla be gathering data right now? And then even then, when they go into that, if they did go that way, why couldn't they already be gathering data pretending like the car is fully autonomous? Wouldn't they be able? Remember, you and I had this conversation, I think like 4 weeks ago. I said, why don't you drive your car? Next time you drive it, just pretend like you can't intervene.
mm,
Just see, what that might look like. Well, why wouldn't Tesla be able to do that in terms of the computer? Just say, okay, what are the likely things that could have happened when that car went into that roundabout? And
mm,
Matt and Bradford decided to intervene, but maybe the car goes, oh, if we hadn't intervened, the odds are there wouldn't have been an accident. The other guy would have been able to avoid or whatever, or maybe we could have avoided. So in all those situations where there's an intervention, why wouldn't they already in shadow mode be analyzing all the possibilities of what might have happened in that circumstance?
yeah, I think they should be collecting that data.
Yeah.
Whenever someone disengages, that should automatically flag a clip to go to Tesla for them to review. And there's probably a system that they would have in place where they could kind of play it forward
Yeah.
where
Yeah.
the human intervention doesn't happen. They could delete that from the tape. You're
Yeah.
right. And then they could use that LLM approach that they developed to kind of predict what happens next. And it'd be interesting to see what it came up with from there.
Yeah, and if it was really good, I would think there's two ways you use that. One would be with the regulatory agencies in terms of, what you're trying to prove that it's ready to go. The other would be, I'd love to see the data. I'd love to have that be part of 1010. Say, okay,
Mhm.
look, we've been running in shadow mode for a year now. And we know that in 99% of all interventions, even safety interventions where somebody completely took over, that in 99% of those interventions, nothing negative would have happened. So we believe, yeah, whatever the number is. And I feel like the crowd really wants to know what these numbers are, numbers like that number. But that would be an
Mhm.
interesting one, I think.
Or for Tesla to just show off that technology, I think that would be really cool
That
for
too.
people to see.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, here's a customer car. We put it in a public area, so it can't be identified. We blurred out some things from the screen or whatever, and they intervened here, and here's what we believe would have happened if they didn't intervene. I think that would be really interesting for sure.
Yeah. So there was a big, big bunch of folks really clapping back at some extinct magazine from a previous era that nobody reads anymore. But their covers sometimes get a lot of attention. And boy, if they wanted attention today, they got it. Time magazine put up a picture of the top influencers in the world of AI. And then if you manage to go in, if you want to go inside and take a look at the 100 that they listed there on the inside, you would have found some missing names. What did you
Mhm.
think?
Yeah, so yeah, they had 99 AI influencers, and Elon was not one of them. I guess he's not an influencer, like he's actually doing the work. But he did kind of help found OpenAI. He was very key in funding OpenAI and helping them get started. So
and
that's a big,
hiring the number one AI guy in the world to work there.
yeah. And yeah, so yeah, he recruited Ilya to OpenAI. He was there when NVIDIA delivered this first supercomputer to OpenAI, I think.
Yeah, it
Uh,
looks like it. There's a
but
picture of him handing it to him.
yeah, Tesla is one of the biggest um, implementers of real world AI. So it's not just with software or like in Windows or in our programs, but it's with actual robots where AI is driving the cars, AI is telling the robots what to do. And it's a huge miss that they did not have Elon there. Um, and it's a little bit emblematic of kind of how we had this huge boom in AI stocks, and Tesla is largely been ignored.
Right, right. But Warren Redlick pointed out there was a few other missing names there too. There was like uh, a huge, I forget the whole list, but
Mm.
Facebook, there was no
Oh, the chief scientist of Facebook wasn't on there?
there wasn't even it's, my brain just did a complete
Uh,
the CEO of Facebook wasn't
okay, Zuckerberg, yeah.
Zuckerberg wasn't on there. He went down a whole list of other people that weren't even
Mhm.
mentioned in the article. Time Magazine, I don't know what they were thinking. Whether I feel like they would have had to been sitting around in a room and all agreeing, well, no, we're not going to put Musk on there. I mean, you can't not have his name cannot not have come up in the conversation.
And they included Marquez Brownlee,
Yeah.
which, yeah, he does a lot of Apple reviews, but I don't
Yes.
see how he's an AI influencer. He doesn't talk much about AI on X. He doesn't talk much about it on his review channel on YouTube. I don't see how he's an AI influencer. And then you had Scarlett Johansson, who was the voice of her, I think, in the movie. And there was all the controversy because it was believed that OpenAI used her voice,
Right.
and she was threatening to sue, but like how is she an influencer otherwise? I guess influencer is kind of like this bad word, or this thing you just kind of throw away to the wayside or whatever.
I don't know. It was so crazy. Well, anyway, I haven't read Time Magazine, I think in 30 years. I think I gave up Time Magazine about the time I gave up Inc.
Mhm.
magazine and the New York Times and the US News and World Report. I think I gave all those and the LA Times. They were
This
all,
just reinforces that.
it just reinforces that my decision was right 30 years ago. You also posted, I believe it was you who posted today. I didn't go back and double check this, so you can tell me, Randy, you need to double check your work about a massive facility that's going to be using over 500 megapacks that was announced either today or yesterday. Was that you?
No, but I did repost it. So
Oh, you
in
reposted it.
Georgia,
Okay. Okay.
it's nearly 500 megapacks, 2 gigawatt hours. It's gigantic. Looks like it's positioned near a substation, and basically it's moving forward. So that they got the interconnect, and the batteries are coming. It's Yeah, it's a huge deal. I think it's over 400 million for Tesla, but it's one of the biggest ones to go up so far. So 2 gigawatt hours is just massive. That's a ton of batteries.
Yeah, and I saw the other day where that Australia, that huge battery that they were going to be adding to that one again, making, I guess they're trying to keep their lead in the world as as the largest single facility in the world. So is there, so I forget whether you and I talked about this a few weeks ago, but we have one facility finished. Maybe it's getting very close in Lathrop to its goal of 10,000 megapacks a year. We've got Shanghai that should be coming on in the next few months, which is going to have another 10,000 capacity. And then Elon said something about possibly triple, so that means either one or both would have more than 10,000 capacity. The only reason not to keep building or not to have announced yet another facility someplace would be if you don't have visibility on that much demand that can mature in that amount of time, right? I mean, if my salespeople were out there,
Yeah.
if my salespeople were out there telling me, okay, we got this one, this one, this one, this one, and this one, those will come in 2025, if all the permitting goes right. These will come in 2026, these will come in 2027. And we see these that are starting right now in 2028, and altogether, those should all be our deals. If you don't have that, then maybe you don't build that next factory. But if you have that, then you do. What are you seeing?
Well, it could just be some uncertainty about Europe. I think Europe would be their next spot. So I think that it's a good idea to do it by region. You co-locate, your supply and all that.
Right.
So I think they're seeing how the US market is developing. Once they get the China factory going, they'll see how that market develops from there. Um, I'm guessing a lot of the sales are going to be in China,
Right.
and it won't be exporting initially or for a while. But eventually that'll be exporting throughout Oceania. That might be the source of a lot of the batteries that go to Australia, once it gets made. Um, I think it makes sense to build a factory in Europe, even if you don't make the batteries there. I think it makes sense to build one there, and then get it going at a a level that you think is maybe slightly aggressive, but you think you're gonna fully sell out, based off of how the utilities are set up and the fluctuations in the prices
Sure.
of electricity. And then, just see how that demand develops each year from there. But it's like the cost of these factories isn't that expensive,
Yeah.
based off of how much activity is going through each of them each year.
Right.
Yeah, so if Lathrop does 40 gigawatt hours in a year, I think that's something like $10 billion.
Yeah.
And I think at most it would cost $1 billion to make that factory.
Right. Yeah. For 10 billion bucks a year. Seems like
Yeah.
a seems like a good deal. Well, speaking of good deals, Nvidia is now down 25% from its all-time high.
Mhm.
It's been down all week and was struggling today to get up a buck. And then in the after hours, it's gone down that buck. So Nvidia seems like one of the best plays in the market. And yet, Jensen didn't even have to come out politically in order to get it to go down 40%, I mean 25%. What's going on with Nvidia? Why is it down 25%? And is it now a buy?
Yeah, so it turned out as maybe a rumor that the U.S. Justice Department was going to go after NVIDIA and looking into their monopolistic power. I've been calling NVIDIA monopoly early as last year, maybe before then. Um, Basically, everyone has to buy from them because they have the best product at the best price and the most supply. So pretty much you got to do it. It's not just the hardware; it's also the software that comes with it. Um, so people might be looking into their supply chain, and NVIDIA might be doing some things there where they're consolidating their power in the supply chain. There's some critical components to their supercomputers, like something called high bandwidth memory, but there isn't just one supplier of that. There's multiple suppliers. There's not just one supplier of the chips that are used. It's not just Taiwan Semi, but they are the sole supplier, I think, of the best processes.
Right.
But the South Koreans are coming on, being able to do the super intricate and three-dimensional stuff. So I don't think there's a monopoly case there really. Um, I think there was just a lot of gambling going on in NVIDIA, a lot of leverage and options. Um, so I wasn't surprised that someone got taken out of the sales for NVIDIA. I don't see any real concerns for their next version of their chipset, Blackwell
Right.
or the H200s. Demand appears to be very strong for those, and the hyperscalers are still falling all over themselves to buy them. So that's Meta, Amazon, Google, etc. Microsoft are buying 350,000, and so is Meta of these. Um, and Tesla's only buying 50,000 of them
Oh,
only. Um, so I think that growth is going to be strong for NVIDIA, and next year looks strong. It does appear to be a good value here, and I can't really comment on what we may or may not be doing.
okay. So I look at the two companies, Nvidia and Tesla, side by side, and I say to myself,
Mhm.
right now, both of them have zero downside. I mean, I look at zero risk. I mean, sure, if the macro goes really south, we really have some crazy event or something, you can never plan for a black swan or whatever. But if under normal circumstances, I see like zero downside at this point. Now, would I have said zero downside a week ago or 2 weeks ago on Nvidia? Yeah, maybe, but you know, I see now even less chance for downside there. And Tesla, I feel like, yeah, they could go down 10%, but that would be about it. So the upside though on Nvidia, it's hard for me to, and I don't pretend to know a ton about it, but it seems like it's hard for me to come up with more than a doubling, let's say over the next 5 years, maybe a tripling, maybe a 3x. But on
Mm,
Tesla, I can easily see a 5x in 2 years. So
yeah.
do you think there's any of that shifting taking place with the players? You know, the people that play, are they moving out of NVIDIA back into Tesla? Because I think they were moving out of Tesla a few weeks ago into NVIDIA. So do you think there's any movement back? And I actually have to admit, I didn't come up with that idea. One of my ex people suggested that in a post.
Yeah, I was actually thinking of doing a survey along these lines because there have been a fair number of Teslanaires who have shifted some money over to NVIDIA over the last, I would say, 9 months or so.
Right.
Um, and and now they could be, second guessing it, especially like when it seems like the wind has been taken out of the sails a little bit of NVIDIA. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if those dollars are shifting a bit. And if I remember right, like earlier in the day, generally the market was kind of back and forth. So it was down on the day.
Yeah, yeah.
And Tesla was up substantially.
Right.
So the market's starting to worry about what's going on with the economy.
Yeah.
And you thought I was crazy last week. I talked about a 50 basis point rate cut.
Yeah.
And I thought I might have been crazy saying that, but now that's like a 50-50 chance that'll be 25 or 50 basis point rate cut. The jobs data has been pretty bad. The job
Manufacturing
openings,
data.
yeah.
Manufacturing data, not good. Beige Book, not good at all.
Mhm. So there's those macro concerns, and NVIDIA just reported earnings, so there's a bit of a vacuum there
Right.
while
Right.
people wait for the next development to happen. I didn't think much of the news from NVIDIA was bad, and one of the really remarkable things about NVIDIA is the U.S. government has basically almost banned them from selling the good stuff to China. They have to sell these chips that are
Right.
very neutered down. And still they're growing that business, but they've been able to grow what they call this sovereign AI, where they're selling to other governments. Or like, oh, you need to have control of your data and have your own AI in your own language, and governments are buying into this idea. And this business
And
is
what
actually going to grow to over $10 billion a year for NVIDIA.
And I think to myself, what could go wrong with that scenario?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Anyway, so the Beige Book is the Fed's nationwide analysis of where the markets are, of where the economy is right now. It comes out 2 days ago. The market didn't even pay any attention to it. You couldn't really see any result of what the Beige Book being out. That you look at 11 o'clock East, 11 o'clock West Coast time, 2 o'clock Eastern on yesterday, I think it was. Might have been Tuesday. I can't remember. I think it was yesterday, I think. Anyway, and you saw no action at all after that. The Beige Book was horrible. I mean, it was like 9 of the 12 regions are down or flat, and only 3 regions are flat to up. It was saying that manufacturing was really bad. I mean, it just went on and on. It was kind of not a great read. So that would tend one thing that did move was the bond market. So after it came out, the bond market did go down, or I'm sorry, went up, but the yields went down. And then the yields went down again today. So the yields might have been reacting somewhat to the Beige Book. But what do you think happens tomorrow with the employment numbers coming out? If we see good news for the economy, meaning more people employed, does the market go down? Because what do you think is going to happen tomorrow? Because everybody's keyed on tomorrow. I mean, I've never seen so many articles on one report.
Um, yeah, so I'm looking at the Beige Book now. I think maybe the problem with the Beige Book is like there's 12 different elements to it. There's the 12 Fed regions, and the summary is a lot of words and it doesn't have a ton of numbers. Um, I'm trying to have Claude rewrite like a summary in the style of the Hemingway app. Let's see what it comes up with. Because I want to hear how bad the Beige Book was.
Okay.
So it says economic slowdown spreads. 9 Fed districts report flat or declining activity. Employment steady. Firms cautious. Wages modest. Prices up slightly to moderately. Consumer spending down. Manufacturing contracts. Labor market cools. Hiring selective. Job searches longer. Wage pressures ease. So that's good for
Yeah.
inflation. Skilled workers still in demand. Prices rise modestly. Input costs easing. That's good. Freight and insurance costs up. That's not good. Expectations stabilize or ease further. Real estate mixed. Home sales soft overall. Um, and then consumer spending on goods, services, travel down, like Randy and I have been talking about. Manufacturing falls widely, as Randy just said. 3 districts expect slight declines. Yeah, so
I mean,
and that was like that's like the short headline version of it. Um, I love
yeah, I
those
mean,
3 word
you'd
sentences.
be
That's pretty
depressed.
powerful stuff. What's
You'd be
that?
depressed after reading that. You'd want to take what do you take? Well, I forget what you take for depression.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, done. That's not, I'd agree with you. Like, that's not good news.
And
I don't know what'll happen tomorrow. We kind of want to see the revisions whenever we get jobs data. Um,
yes.
the shrinking of the job openings is concerning because that means employers are reducing their listings of, you know, hiring that they're doing. So they're not demanding, more workers as much. So it seems like cuts are coming, or there's kind of like freezes in place. So it's not a good sign of it's it's a sign of illness in the economy.
Are you? I'm sure you watch a lot of the CNBC videos, during the day. There's a few of them that I really like. I'm not going to name names, but there's a few of them that I really respect. I think that the interviewers, okay.
Are you a Tyler Matheson guy?
I'm not even gonna. I'm so bad with names. I don't even care what their names are. So I can't help you on that. There's a
Okay.
blonde, a blonde gal. Of course, they're all blonde, but she's very. I think she's just so. Her questions are so good. I forget her
Mm,
name. Anyway, but even they seem to get tricked by the headline numbers on jobs. They
mhm,
keep talking about the headline numbers years later. They're like, well, we've had really good numbers the last 3 months. And I'm like, no, you haven't.
mhm,
Not if you take away the revisions. And so I've been a little shocked that they haven't been a little more nuanced in their statements about the job numbers. And tomorrow is going to be, like I say, it seems like the world is going to go either, I mean, I'm hyperbolizing here, but so many people are so focused on the numbers tomorrow. And I just wonder whether these top people that I really like will be nuanced enough to say, well, okay, shows 165,000 jobs, but who knows whether that's true or not.
mhm. Yeah, I'm not sure if this report is one of the ones that has the revisions, but that's mainly the one I would wait for, like those
It
monthly
does.
numbers.
It has the revisions, yes.
Okay, yeah, so that's what I would be paying attention to is the revisions. I'm curious.
I did see that the betting dropped by 25,000. So I forget, the number had been 180 and now the betting is 155 or something like that, dropped by
Mhm.
25,000 in terms of that number. But the number really maybe to pay more attention to is the household survey, because at least that's not going to be revised. That's a survey. It's a hard number. So if we're at 4.3 or 4.2 or 4.4, that's based on the survey. And so that might be a more of the number to pay attention to, if it kind of isn't crazy compared to everything else, rather than the actual number of jobs added, which seems to be the one that's not reliable.
Yeah.
Yeah. So of course, I continue to believe that the recession started June 1. Exactly. That's why, yeah, the consumers went, I'm done. I got no money. And they stopped buying everything, especially cars. So we'll see over time. The Beige Book would have absolutely confirmed my beliefs. The automobile industry overall seems to be confirming. The numbers today came out 14.2, 15.2.
What's that, annual run rate in the US?
Yeah, the annual run rate. Yeah.
15.2 million or 14.2?
I can't remember now. I usually can keep all these numbers in my head, but that one went away.
It was over 17 million, like 2017 or something like that.
Right. But 15, here we go, 15.1 last month, down from 15.8 in July. So we're getting this, and that's from the manufacturers. Again, that's not what's sold through at retail. So that's one of the reasons why I'm believing, I believe that was kind of the last, what do you want to call it, the last thing to drop. We're not going to see, well, we might see services come down a lot in the future. We've seen a little bit with the fast food and with travel and whatnot, but I guess the lawyers and the accountants are still making money.
Yeah, you mentioned the auto industry. There's some definite signs of stress. Like I think Ford's wanting to close a plant or move to one shift on something. Volkswagen is in like full panic mode. They're wanting to close at least 2 plants in Germany, and the unions are already up in arms about it. They don't want to do it. I think Volkswagen's saying that, if they're not able to do this, like they might have a risk of shifting into losses.
Yeah.
And Volkswagen has a ton of debt. So if they do shift into losses, that could be a problem for them longer term. And just an inflexible, workforce and factory setup is not great.
Yeah. Well, you had brought up earlier, so it must have been a hot on your list of things to talk about, was the situation in Brazil. Obviously, we're, as Elon fans, we're also, enjoying and appreciating his efforts to make sure that we have free speech in the United States, but, around the world would be nice too. So go ahead. What's your update on Brazil?
Yeah, so it seemed like those who are against Elon in the US kind of like were for what Brazil was doing to X in Brazil. But since then, over last week, X has began to disclose the law around what's happening in Brazil and how what this judge is doing appears to be illegal and against like Brazil's constitution and laws against due process. So they do have a lot of laws that are similar to ours in the US, and people have due process. And this judge is handing down rulings where there's no public listing of what's in the case or who's in the case. He won't even say what's wrong, and it's like these secret orders to X, basically kicking them off the platform. And it's people who disagree with people in power in Brazil and how power has evolved in Brazil, essentially. So since this came out, surprisingly, Bloomberg, who is generally not for Elon, Washington Post, which is owned by Bezos, they came out in favor of X on this, and also The Economist or Financial Times. I think it's The Economist. So these are folks who kind of lean different than Elon's been leaning recently, and they're saying that X has done the right thing in Brazil.
Yeah.
After initially, a good portion of those folks came out and said, "Oh, give it to Elon or whatever." So that's great, but on top of that, people in Brazil are starting to fight back. So the Bar Association has groups or an element in there that is seeking to put pressure on this judge because apparently what he's doing is not legal.
They were trying to impeach him yesterday, but I didn't see the end of that. But I don't know if that process continues to go on. There was something like 16 voting yes and 13 voting no and 27 votes that hadn't been counted or something. But so there's some kind of an effort going on to impeach him as well. Well, I have to laugh because I have the privilege of 76 years on the planet. I have the privilege of having been at UCLA in the late 60s and early 70s when the free speech movement was at its peak. It was not a right-wing movement. For those who might have forgotten, the free speech movement of the 60s and 70s was a left-wing movement. And the left seemed to understand at that point the value of free speech. But now we have the current vice president of the United States and someone who wants to be president saying the other day that misinformation on social media has to be regulated by the government. I'm going, we can't have free speech if the government gets to decide what's misinformation. So the free speech movement has switched sides. And so it's really interesting, having watched it in my lifetime, go from it being a left-wing cause to being a right-wing cause. And it just seems like it should be an everybody cause.
Yeah. And this whole struggle in Brazil illustrates that this whole transition of power, transition is a kind word for what happened in Brazil. I would call it like a consolidation of power that kind of like got swept under the rug. This is what these political opponents that are in the minority are trying to fight and expose, and they're getting censored for that. Yeah, I remember when we didn't have the internet, when in order to hear interesting independent thought, you had to like find like underground newspapers,
The
things
Onion.
like that. Yeah, the Onion was one of those, right?
Yep.
But you had to go like Harvard Square and pick up something on paper from a crazy person. So
Right.
for us to have the internet and to have X and have people that are standing up to the censors, I think is hugely important. And the accusations continue, but show me the hate speech on X that is somehow like getting reach. Whenever you do see it get reach, it's people who are pro censorship. They're giving it the exposure, whereas X is not giving it exposure. It's these people are going out searching for it, finding it, and then amplifying it.
Yes. Which
Crazy.
seems backwards, but there you go.
Yeah.
All right, I'll give you the last word before we look at the where the market was today. Any last thoughts that I haven't covered, things you're passionate about today?
Good news on Good News Thursday. Whenever Tesla gets more compute, it seems like they deliver in spades.
That's right.
And it's continuing to happen. I'm curious to see, of all these goals for September, what all gets checked off in September or October. I'll give them October too.
All right, good.
Or by the end of the year.
By the end of the year, early
sweet.
next year.
But that would be good news for me.
Okay, Bradford, we'll cut you loose and we'll hang on there, everybody. We'll go over the numbers and see where we are as we go into tomorrow. All right, thanks so much, sir.
Yep, bye.
All right, so the day, as you probably already know, maybe you don't, 219 down for the Dow, 43 up for the NASDAQ. This is I think a bit of a reversal from yesterday. Well, maybe everything was down yesterday. S&P up, down 16 and Tesla up $10.76. If you put those into percentages, you've got the Dow down 54, NASDAQ up 0.25, S&P 0.30%, and Tesla up almost 5%, 4.9. You got the Magnificent Seven all up except for Microsoft down slightly. And you have the Cathie Woods almost all up as well, except for 𝐄𝐦𝐚𝐲 again. I think there's something going on there with a bankruptcy or something, if I remember right. I should probably pull that one out of my list and put somebody new in. All right, let's go ahead and take a look. Oh, the after hours, which is almost over now. Let's take a look at Tesla in the after hours. Down 0.2%. So sitting at 229.70, about 47 cents off the high for the day. All right, so we go into the bonds. This is the exciting part now. Are you ready? Okay, so in the pre-market, we have unchanged on the 10-year. We have 5 basis points down. I'm sorry, 0.5 basis points down on the 2-year. And what does that do to the two of them? Well, you've got the 2-year still going back up again, inverting out a bit, 1.5 basis points higher than the 10-year at this exact moment. See what happens tomorrow. Maybe that'll be the day that it finally re-inverts for good. We've got the 2-month up, of course. I don't know, 2-month. I don't know why I even keep telling you about the 2-month, because it's just craziness. Okay, let's go ahead and look at oils. Now, what happened in the oil patch today? Although it seems to have no impact. So 2 things happened. Number one, a much bigger drawdown, much lower inventory numbers in the United States than expected. At the same time, OPEC said that they were going to put off their increased production from October until later in the year. I'm not sure they gave any specific date. Both of those things you'd think would move the market, moved it hardly at all. We're still sitting at 69.33, up 18 cents on Texas Intermediate, Brent at 72.69, unchanged in the pre-market. Natural gas had jumped up dramatically today. I forget, like a whole bunch, and it's up a little bit more in the pre-market, up 0.27% at 226. Gold continues to go back, looking like it's trying to get back to all-time highs. It is sitting at 2,547 right now. We got silver up 0.31, 29.19, still hanging around under 30. It did go over 30 last week, but then back down. We've got copper up 0.19 at $4.14.5. You've got the dollar doing nothing in the pre-market. You've got Bitcoin. I gave you if you were listening this morning, I gave you my analysis. I have no idea what I'm talking about. My analysis is in order for Bitcoin to go up from here, it needs new buyers, needs new people, needs people that say, I want to get in. I haven't been in before. It's kind of like Tesla. You know, you can't just keep expecting Tesla to go up and up and up unless more people come in that go, hey, I want to do this. I want to do this. And, you know, right now, the momentum is not in Bitcoin's favor. It's sitting today at 56,166. That's down 1748 on the day. All right, what about those equities? Well, you got the Dow up 43 after being down today. Then you got the S&P down 2.50 after being up today. NASDAQ future after being up today is down 51.75. That would be the Dow up 0.11%, S&P future 0.05 down percent, and NASDAQ future 0.28%. All right, so there you have it. That's what we have today to look at. Sir Basher outdid himself today with an amazing analysis of the Tesla stock, looking at it in comparison to NVIDIA, looking at it in comparison to the S&P, looking at the directionality of the stock over time and what seems to move it, what isn't moving, all kinds of very cool ways of analyzing Tesla stock. If you didn't see that one, I will put the card right up here. And then if you just have $3 a month, if If you have $3 or $5 or $10 a month sitting around, just looking for a place to go, you can send it over to your old buddy Randy. That'd be great. To Patreon. That's the way, right? I'm going to, at some point, I'll have a subscription on X if you'd like to do it there as well. You can also do just like a $5 or a $10 anytime you want here on YouTube. That's another way you can do it. Or you could, start buying those Cybertruck bottle openers. We'll be selling those like crazy here as Christmas gets closer. All right, that's all I got for you right now. It's been great talking to you.